when I get into Tenkara rod, it's my first 2 years of Tenkara rod. I catch more fish than my last 17 years of fly fishing combined. And I catch more fish on side between 14 to 18 inch with my Tenkara rod and my fly rod.
That was Luong Tam talking about what it felt like changing into Tenkara and how he drastically increased his hookups by changing to Tenkara from traditional fly fishing techniques. This is episode number 39 of the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show.
Welcome to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show, where you discover tips, tricks, and tools from the leading names in fly fishing today. We'll help you on your fly fishing journey with classic stories covering steelhead fishing, fly tying, and much more.
How's it going, everyone? Thanks for stopping by the Fly Fishing Show. In today's episode, I interview Luong Tam to talk about his experience with Tenkara and how he built a business building Tenkara rods. Luong talks about how Tenkara is a more effective way to catch trout because you are more in touch with your fly and spend less time dealing with everything else. He tells us about his life growing up in a war-torn Vietnam and how worrying about air raids, bombs being dropped, and what he learned from this crazy world. Don't miss this as Luong talks about how he went mano to mano with the Oakland Casting Club fly fishers and came out on top with his Tenkara techniques. So, without further ado, here's Luong Tam from TenkaraTanuki.com. How's it going, Luong?
Very good. How are you, Dave?
Good.
Thank you for interviewing me.
Yeah. Thanks for making the time to come on. We're going to dig into a topic that's pretty interesting. That's in fly fishing. I think there's people on both sides of it here, and I'm just hoping to you can educate me and everybody out there as far as Tenkara and what it's all about. So, I was hoping. I guess first I'll say I've got a little bit of I've been nursing a little bit of a cold here, so I'll do my best. And I think episode 2 was the other time I had a cold on the show, but I managed to get through it. But so I've got that. But maybe as far as fly fishing and Tenkara, you could talk about how you got into it. And I'm not even sure if you got into the actual fly fishing with kind of traditional style first and then Tenkara, or if you've been all Tenkara. But maybe you can give us a background on your whole history and how you kind of got into building rods and things like that.
Oh, I have been fly fishing since the 90s, many years ago. But jump forward to further back to it. It's when I was a little kid. And I was born in Hanoi, and there was air raid from the U.S. bombing in North Vietnam at the time. So I moved to the countryside to live with my grandmom. And over there, and I exposed to fishing. So I just follow the kid and go out and do some fishing. And from kid from the city, it'd probably be the best thing to do. So because I cannot get, kid from the countryside, they do a lot of different things, which on the urban kid don't deal with it, like walking with a bare feet and play with the buffalo and where. So I felt fishing was fun for me, and I just make my own rod from there. Because in Vietnam, when Tonkin bamboo, that's most of the bamboo that we build a bamboo rod is called Tonkin bamboo. It's grown in Vietnam just like wheat over here. So I just cut few out and just carve my own little fishing rod, just one fixed line rod about 4 to 5 feet long, and just use a broken porcelain and just carve it down like you use over here. You use a plan, but I don't have the plan to do that. To make it just for fun and catch either freshwater shrimp or little small fish because I was a little kid, and I love the rod band and I just love the feeling of it. So that. It's just my childhood hobby.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so I come over here and I work on a high-tech company.
When did you come over? When did you come over to the U.S. for the first time?
I came to the U.S. in about 1979. It was one of the boat people.
Okay.
So I came over here and go to college. And
how old were you when you came over in 79?
I came over here at the age about 22.
Okay.
When I come over.
And what did that what did all that? I mean, we're kind of off on a little tangent here, but what did that feel like coming over, into the U.S. at 22 and with given your first part of your life?
It's a really, really interesting feeling. I never forget about it. It's a feeling that we already remember today after many years, 40 years, I believe. But I was going to Vietnam, and there's a lot of activity going on, and the war zones and noisy and everything. So the first time when I come over here, and in America, I live in a suburbia with my great uncle. I know with my father, brother, my uncle, and it's live in a little, suburban, and it was just so quiet. I couldn't even sleep. Right. I couldn't even sleep. Wow. It was like dead silent at night. It was, when you're in the refugee camp in Hong Kong, it's a lot of noisy and car driving by, just like you are right middle freeway here you live in Hong Kong like freeway on a commute hour. So it's come to the US, it's just everything dead silent. That was culture shock. I couldn't sleep because it was so quiet for a while. Mm-hmm. And that was the first thing. And my first 2 years, sometimes I dreamed about the Vietnamese police knocking the door. And it just woke me up with sweat. But that's what happened in Vietnam. Police knocking your doors in Hanoi, knocking the door and check how many people who will visit your house. You have anybody who will make you feel very uncomfortable. Oh, the police, I dream about the police. So, police always in Vietnam, they really control you a lot. And everybody in a family, when I live in Hanoi, you get a little books. And in the book, you have everybody's names on it. So whenever the police come, you have to show that book, and they want to check how many people on the book to be sure people are in the books. And then everybody have your ID card, look like a passport, and also they check that too to be sure that to match with being a book. And on the book, so they know each other, so they know everybody in the family. Yeah. So they don't even have to look on the book sometimes. You come over and say, hey, where's Luong, for example? They can ask you that question, and the family have to report, he went to visit his friend or something like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So they just want to be sure that, I'm keeping my eyes on you.
Gotcha. Yeah, I want to get into the fly fishing stuff for sure here, but I want to hear a little more. This is really, for me, probably for anybody, this just blows your mind, the fact that you grew up in an area, with the refugee camp. And I know when I was growing up, the thing that freaked me out as a kid, there's a couple things that freaked me out. One of them was the mountain blowing up because we had a volcanic eruption. Yes. Yeah, so I had that happen to me, and so I was always worried, Mount Hood was going to blow up. And the other thing was that Russia was going to invade us, and we were going to all die from a nuclear holocaust, And so, being in that environment where you're in these, what did you learn from that now, looking back?
It learns, don't mess with your neighbor. That's the first thing you do. When I grew up in Vietnam, because the way the structure in North Vietnam, they control people they have within the building, they call the building leader. So the guy who in charge for the whole building will report into the street. Each street you get a block, and then each block you get a head of the blocks, and couple blocks you have one street you get a groups, or you got the street leader, and then you go up from there. So every single, everything you increase in one scale, you get somebody in charge for that territory. So it's a multiple. They in charge for territory. So like my parents were unfortunately was born rich, is that right? So they get a building. So when the communists took over, the building become like apartment building complex. It designed for one family. Now it become a 33 family. Is that right? Everybody occupy every room. So every room is the family live there. Yeah. So, and in Vietnam, we have door, but it's a lot of ventilation. So we have wall, but door, but it's the ventilation. So whatever I'm saying or talking, my next door apartment building will hear exactly what I say, because ventilation throughout the building.
Sure.
So they keep the eyes on everybody.
Gotcha.
And everybody wants to report to the police or the upper head to get some points. All right.
Wow.
So it's a really tough environment. So that's how I was living in that situation for many years. So you go up in the system, you get accustomed to it. So you just know how to deal with it. So that is how you go up in the system like that. No. So when the air raid, everybody on the U.S. air raid, everybody get out of the city.
Oh.
So in the city side, the airplane just fly over you, so not going to bomb you. So the war between the people and the air are quite different. It become entertaining because we can watch the rocket shoot from the ground up, and we can see the airplane fly over us, and it's fine up there, but it's far away. But in '79, when the Vietnamese, my father is Chinese, a little bit of blood of Chinese. We lived in Vietnam for many generations.
Oh, okay.
And he's a high school teacher. But when we heard about these, when the Chinese come over to Vietnam, they got a war between North Vietnam and China. And it's certainly totally different because, in China, they can just bring in big cannon, they can shoot directly to Hanoi, all right? So it like we are right under the guns, all right? So it's totally different. And if you watch the YouTube, sometimes you see how the South Americas or Indian people travel and they sit on the train with a lot of people sit outside the train, on top of the train.
Oh, yeah.
It's like that in Vietnam when the railroad come the mountain, come from border of China, come to Hanoi, and people just sit like that. It's really scary because we never seen people sit outside the train before.
Yeah.
And I live next to the railroad, so it's very scary. So what happened is the government don't want these people land on Hanoi, so they just get the train fly to Hanoi. So you don't feel the impact of the refugee, but you can by watching that, it's really scary.
Yeah. Wow. So, gosh, so basically had this whole crazy part of your life, and then you get into '79, you're in the U.S. And then, so you said you picked up the rod back in the, back in the day there early on in your life. Now, when would you say you kind of got into what you would say is Tenkara type of fishing? And
I got into fly fishing first.
Okay.
And I got into so deeply, and I was working in a .com company, and I got into fly fishing first. I got out of college, and then picking up fly fishing, and I learned so much from fly fishing because it's more challenge. And I have also little kids, so there is a lot of good things about fly fishing. Is we learn entomology together, and I catch more fish with fly fishing than I catch with worm or spin rod. So we were having a good time doing fly fishing. And then the 2000 when the .com bust, and I begin to try to make my own fly rod to kill my times or just try to figure out what I'm going to do next. So I built my own rods, and then we got into fly rods, the bamboo fly rods, and then we got into the midlife crisis. I mean, economy going up and down. So we agreed to divorce, and so every weekend I took my son to the mountain. We go fishing with my fishing rod, and we travel all around the western side of U.S. in here, from all the way from California to tip top of Vancouver Island, and many times we travel to Montana and fish on the Yellowstones, and it's all the popular places, right? Yeah. So I mean that, and 2014 I was working for another company. I am software engineers at the time, and I work for another company, and I travel to Yellowstone every year, at least one, to fish on the Firehole. That's my famous river that I like to fish. So I was there, and it was a guy named, I believe his name Mike or Brian, one of his names. And he was the salesman not a salesman, but he called himself chief marketing for Honda. He retired, lived in Colorado, Denver, Colorado. And he had been fishing with Tenkara rod for about many years ago. in Japan.
Oh.
And he come over here, and then he said the last 7 years, that means 14, I mean the last 2007, he had been switching totally delicate to fish with Tenkara rod. And we both fishing, and I'm very effective catching fish with my own fly rod. So we catch about 14 fish, each of us, for 2 hours.
Huh.
And the difference is he doesn't move much. He covers about 200 yards of water, and here I am covered 2 miles of water. Is that right?
Yeah.
Because I like to move a lot from one place to another place. That's my habit. But anyway, so I run into him and we talk about it, and he gave me the rod. And he just, while we were talking, he keeps saying, "Oh, I just missed a strike," and he introduced me to fly rod for about Tenkara rod for about 10 minutes on the river, and that's it. So I come back and I was searching on the internet, and all the rods look the same, and they get all this strange action like 6'4", 7'3". And I look at all the rods, and it seemed to me like they get beginner rods, and they're kind of strange for beginner rod. So I pick up the rods, that kind of middle, not a professional, and it's not the beginner, because it's insulting when you see beginner rods. All right, you don't buy the big beginner rod, so feel a little bit insulted for that. So you just buy the rod. I'm fly fishing for 15 years, and why bother to go for the beginner? So I pick up the rod. The rod is called the 6'4" action. So it's a very strange 6'4" action, and I will talk to you about that later.
Okay.
So then I go out and I catch fish, and it's in Northern California here in the winter. We have the place that you can guarantee you catch fish called Baum Lake. Baum Lake spell is Baum. It's kind of spring quick lake. The water do run to the lake because the PG&E use that as the reservoir for them to have the powerhouse.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, to use that to generate the power. So the lake move very slowly, very very slow. But it next to the what you call the hatchery. So they just release the fish every week. Is that right? They release the fish, and they not release 1 or 2 fish. They release a lot of fish there for the groups, and they're pretty good size of the fish. So sometimes it's raining, the fishing department in Gam doesn't want to go out and just dump the fish to the lake. So I come over there and I catch quite a number of fish, and it's really, really love it because the bend of the rod makes me a good feeling. So I fish for a while, and I do a lot of research, and because Tenkara rod, you cannot cast far, and here's I'm a habit of fly fisherman. So I always try to extend my line as long as I can and try to cast that and always try to beat the system. But then when I get good at it, and when I drive home from the mountain road and my wrist hurts so much, it really hurt a lot because I land so many fish. You think about it, you catch a fish on a 9-foot rod with the torch and the rotation from the 12 to 14-inch fighting fish on the wrist a lot different. With Tenkara rod, you don't have the running line, so everything you pull it up. So like you hold on the hinge door, and the fish on the knob side of that. So it's a lot of pressure on the wrist. And I hurt my wrist so much, I didn't know what happened. Just like fly fishing, when you just practice it, you get a little bit of hurt on your wrist or something, and you just think that way. You don't care about it. Then I went to the summit in Colorado, hosted by Tenkara USA.
Oh yeah.
And I learned a little bit about Tenkara fishing from the summit, a little bit from a Japanese, one of the Japanese called Tenkara master named Ishigaki. He's very, very popular everywhere.
How do you spell that?
Ishigaki is ISHIGA.
Okay.
KI. He's an eye doctor, but he has been practiced Tenkara fishing for about 30 years or so.
Okay, and so I don't want to totally cut you off there, but I was hoping maybe I'm just kind of thinking now for those that maybe don't even know anything about Tenkara, maybe you can just do a quick little definition of what Tenkara is. And I know obviously you fish without a reel, but I didn't know if there was anything else that goes along with it. And then also maybe you can do, I know the background in Tenkara is, it comes from Japan and fishing up in the hills and things like that. And I think it was I think it started just because people needed to catch food for sustenance or whatever. But can you talk a little bit about just the definition of Tenkara, and then you can finish off your story there?
So Tenkara fishing, with the Tenkara, initially I tried to get along as I want the lie on because I'm a fly fisherman. But right now I only do fish like Japanese types, and I even cut down the length of the rod and equal to the line. The length of the line equal to the length of the rod. So it's more effective way of catching fish that way than to get the line longer. Because there are a few different things that when I switch from Tenkara fishing, from fly fishing to Tenkara fishing, in fly fishing, we focus on casting and line control. In Tenkara, we focus on the fly control. The casting in Tenkara rod are quite different than the casting from fly fishing. Fly fishing, you cast very power. In Tenkara fishing, you cast very delicate. It like in fly fishing, if you look at a fly fisherman who casts like a ballet dancer, and Tenkara casting is just more like a music conductor. It's totally different. Mm-hmm. And fly fishing, you don't move your rigs as much. And Tenkara casting, you do use your rigs a lot. Not for casting as much. You do for casting, but it's more about to control the fly with your rigs. So you can do all the mandings or all control how the fly flow on the surface. When you cast it, you just tweak your wrist a little bit. So you want the fly sink down more, or you want the fly flow on the surface of the water when it land on the water. So technical Tenkara fishing is very tricky. That's the first thing. On fly fishing, when you cast, because the line have the weight on the line, so you feel the feedback from the fly line. In Tenkara, the line, modern Tenkara fishing, the line is very small, like 0x tippet, and you don't feel anything on the line. So you cast it's just like you draw the picture on the computer with the mouse. So you don't draw directly the picture onto the paper, but now you look at the computer, and then your hand moving the mouse. So you develop the connection between when you cast with Tenkara rod, you don't feel the line, but you have the connection between that. And all you need to do is to see how the fly land onto the water and how you want it to land. So it's always different way of techniques and different way, and it turned out I like it better. And that's the first things about casting. Casting can be, and also a lot of things that fly fishermen cannot do. When we cast with fly rod, the line will land onto the waters. Most of them will land first. Yep. If you're a good caster, or rarely you get the fly land first, and the line land first, and then you start mending the line. So all your focus shifting from the fly to the line. In Tenkara, the line never touch into the water, and maybe a little bit of tippet touch into the water. So you always control the fly. There's always connection between the rod and control. So basically, the fly become a puppet. Yep. So those things that are totally different. You do cast, but it's different way of casting. It's not easy, like many people think, that fly fish Tenkara people cannot cast. It depends on level of Tenkara fishermen, I guess. But so that is about basic knowledge about casting.
Yeah, and you mentioned that makes sense with the flies and how that's kind of more of your focus. And so there are a couple patterns that are kind of Tenkara patterns with like the hair wing kind of going out. Maybe is there a big difference between the flies you might use?
Well, I use when I would just start with with Tenkara rods. I'm also fly tire, so whatever come from my box, and I use that at a time. Just like ordinary like fly fisherman would use. I use a caddis, I use a nymph, and I use soft hackle, just like whatever regular fly that we use on fly fishing, and it catches fish very effectively too. Then I begin to learn to use a Japanese fly, and right now I use only Japanese fly most of the time because I can use that fly. I can work it as dry fly, and I can use the same fly. I can work as soft hackle. The two fly pattern that in my fly box are a nymph with a tungsten bead head that I want to go deep. Just like if you do jack nymphing, basically jack nymphing nymph.
Yep.
And it's very simple. It's not a complicated. It's no different than it basically it's a jig hook, but similar to they call Utah killer bug. Basically just that. And then on another one, it's just Tenkara fly. They call Kebari. It's a Kebari. So it's called Kebari. Japanese basically mean fly.
Okay.
So it's a reverse hackle. It's like soft hackle here we have in US, and to reverse it, or spider pattern, you can say.
Yeah.
Because the hackle a little bit longer. I have found this is interesting. A lot of people think because of movement, but I will use a two size of fly. It's going down. Actually, my last trip I fished, I will use a one size of fly is number 10. Regardless, either nymph or the dry fly or the Japanese reverse hackle fly. Only two fly that only one side that I use.
And is that typical for any rivers, or just is that typically what you do? You're not using as many different types of patterns?
No, I have. I don't much a pattern because when I just start with fly fishing and I spend 90% of my time on the river to switch the fly, and I lose a lot of tippet, and because you sometimes the fly hatch and you try to tie fly, and I close my eye, practice, I can tie my fly as quick as I can, but when you see the hatch and then you begin to get anxieties and nervous or excited, then it took from 30 seconds to change the fly and become like 3 minutes or 15 minutes by the time the hatch is over. So with the Tenkara fishing, I don't care much about that. And I will talk about that the fishing techniques later, but you don't care much about it. You just use the same fly, except when you go into a midge hatch, and in the winter I will switch, or the spring quick I will switch the fly a little bit, fly size a little bit, but the pattern are pretty much the same.
Okay, and I was going to note the Kebari fly you noted earlier. It'll be at the, I'll get a picture of it and have it in the show notes at wetflyswing.com/39. And I'll have all the other notes that we talk about here. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. I want to talk a little more about the matching, the hatch sort of thing, as far as the flies, and that sort of thing. But maybe you could talk a little more about, just the gear, like what's a typical, length of rod and fly line, and kind of just the whole setup if somebody wanted to see what and how it's different from a typical trout setup. What are you using out there?
The rods are telescopic rods, and the length of the rods, you want to get the longest rod that you can, because the longer rod will give you cover more water.
So like a 15-foot rod, or people using like 16-foot rods out there?
No, it will roast your wrist instantly. You just enter to Tenkara fishing. You probably don't want to get any rod that more than, they call 360, mean basically 360 centimeter, or approximately about 11 feet.
Okay.
And 10 inches long. So you want to use that or shorter. You don't want to use a longer, because most Americans are taller, so you can use a little bit up, a little bit more. But for women, then I would suggest to go even lower, shorter rod. And younger audience, anybody less than 5'6" would use a shorter than 12 feet rod.
Okay.
Yeah, because not many people say that. It's just the rod and the line. You can just buy the line online, about like $20. There are many kind of line called full line. It's braided, and you want to use that. There are many kind of full line out there, so you just want to try to avoid to use a nylon because it twists very quickly. If you get the fly get stuck on the bush and you try to pull it down and everything become tangled. That's the problem with full line in the first place. And it's a little bit heavy when you cast it out and the line will touch the water. And basically you fish with the line touching the water, but not much, not as bad as with the fly fishing. So it touch a little bit, about a couple of feet touch the water on the fly. But if you like to like perfectly dead tripped, that would be perfect. Or a little bit short tripped for with indicator, and that is really really good.
Okay.
To do that.
Okay.
So that's the easy system for the beginning system, and
Gotcha.
then you have about 4 or 5 feet of tippet. That's it.
Okay.
And there's no reel on the Tenkara, so you don't have to invest money on the reel and the line. $20 plus a roll of tippet, $10 or $30, and few flies, and with a rod. Or you can start with a cheap rod out there for a few bucks. Then another, you can go to Amazon. You can get from $7 rod.
So you can get, how much might just a beginner outfit, just so you can just get your whole thing for a reasonable price on Amazon?
From Amazon, you can get from $50 to about $100. You can get it. You can get a whole kit for $100.
Okay.
And cool. You can get the kit. And there's a company called Maxcatch or something like that. And
Okay, and and there are some, typical, there are companies that give you outfits for under, $100 as well, just with they come with a reel too. But I think the problem there is that sometimes the reel, you lose a big piece on that. Sometimes the quality isn't as good. But no, this is interesting. I'm trying to think. I'm just thinking about myself and others. Like, so you're kind of in the industry and you're making rods, Tenkara rods and things like that. Are you guys seeing, are you seeing more new people coming in to check it out? And I wonder, because I think about myself, like, I love fly fishing and I've done it all my life. And I just wonder, like, okay, why would somebody want to get into Tenkara? Is it just for a new challenge? And then also, are you guys seeing more people coming into it?
Yeah, I have a lot of people who are, as a matter of fact, from Oakland Casting Club in here. I start getting into that, and fly fishing clubs around here. There are many years of experience, retired people. And down in Southern California, casting club down there, people are getting into Tenkara rod. In California, it begin to hit into the momentum soon. To be a lot of people to get into Tenkara rod in the next few years. Because it makes people get into that because it's simple. Some people want to try out, and some people already have Tenkara rod, but they don't know how to use that. And now the Tenkara rod proven to be an effective way of catching fish, and people will get into it. But look at it this way. You are a skier, so you invest a lot of money on ski. And suddenly here I come with a skating boards, all right? Snowboarding is kind of strange looking, and here I am. My stick already costs more than the snowboard you get on. So it takes some culture, switch people's mind from ski to down to skating board. So it takes some time like that, but definitely people into that. Yeah.
So you are seeing, and you mentioned the casting club. I think you mentioned when we were talking off air about a story you had about recently. I think you might even have a video out there on the Oakland Casting Club and a fishing trip you guys took, and how you did pretty well compared to some of the other fly fishermen out there. Do you want to talk a little bit about that story there? Yeah.
So I have been fishing with. As a matter of fact, after the trip, I get one of the Oakland Casting Club members send me. I'm also a casting member of Oakland Casting Club as well. But one of the person sent me the note I don't have the email right up here, but he said that thanks so much for the trip, and he just realized that fishing is not about the equipment; it's about the knowledge and skill.
Yeah.
So because we go into the river before I go down to the river in California, we got the Blue Ribbon River here called Pitt River, PIT.
Okay.
And Pitt River is tailwaters. You get a lot of a boulder down on the stream, and it's very slippery. People sleep a lot. You don't wet your butt down there. You're not fish on the Pitt Rivers, all right? The water is from above knee high to belly, or it could be a deeper, and it run really. Some section run very fast, but because slippery, there's not many people fishing there, and there's no trail on the river, and so you have to go to a lot of blackberry, little blackberry, and also stinking nettle and poison oak. So it scares a lot of people. With the fly rod people, I come up with the fly fishermen people come in here. They spend a lot of time untangle the fly line from the bushes. With Tenkara rod, I walk all the way up to the river. Then I just pull my rod out. I'm ready to go.
Oh yeah.
So it's very convenient that way. That's first thing. But for fishing, I like fast water. Most of fly fishermen will focus on the beginning of the pool, or you can say the end of the river. That when it's more gentle flow and they put indicator, they can cast far because they believe in the distance. When we Tenkara rod, I know exactly where the fish are going behind those boulder fast water. I just drop it right there. Now, before I went to the Pitt River, I have a lot of friends who fly fishermen here. And one of the guy named Chris Leonard out in Mammoth, which is my good buddy, and he said that the fish on Pitt River runs really hard. So are you sure you want to bring a Tenkara rod? Because most of fly fishermen always worry about what happens when the fish run.
Yep.
I just took the rod over, and I said, well, I have to put my rod to the test. So I took it over, and sure enough, I cast the fish, and I bring in very quickly, a lot faster. When you get used to with the Tenkara rod, you bring the fish in a lot faster than with a fly rod because you don't have room for the fish. The fish cannot run by the first place. I will explain to you why, but I ran it over across the currents and everything, and the fish pretty good sized fish, and they don't fight as hard as I thought they would be. The reason why is because when Tenkara rod, when you set the hook on, you leave the rod up straight. So the fish looking up instead of looking down. So when they wiggle their tail, they're shooting up instead of they go deep into the water, and they use the current. So they have not much chance of use of current. And you just guide the fish on the slower water side or your side, and you bring the fish in with a heads up. It's very easy that way.
Gotcha. You turn them in and then get them into you don't let them run. And what's the biggest size fish that you've ever heard of caught on a Tenkara rod, or that you've caught?
People caught salmon with it, but I caught it. It's about like 22 inches.
Really?
I know my friend cast 24 inches.
Wow. So
Tenkara rods are very strong, a lot stronger than fly rod.
Yeah. No, I love hearing this because, you definitely hear, on the conservation end, a lot of, all sorts of different species that people are fly fishing for where they're maybe playing them out too far and, maybe injuring the fish. But with Tenkara, you don't have that because you're pretty much getting them in very quickly. And if you don't, do you break off fish too occasionally?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The thing about why Tenkara land the fish in quickly because the tip of Tenkara rod is just so soft.
That's right.
Because you have to cast a very, very small line, so the tip of the rod very soft. And so you leave the rod up straight, and the fish basically just look up. And because I also use a shorter line now, so the fish doesn't have much room to turn the head down.
And so how long is the typical line you're using?
Right now, I just use a little bit less than about a foot less than my rod length.
So 10 feet or?
if I have, oh no, I don't use a 10 feet rod. I'm now graduated, so I use a 13-foot rod.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. I rarely use the shorter rod this day because I use a shorter line. In the past, I used shorter rod with a longer line, but now I get a longer rod and I use the shorter line. So also I get more control of fly this way. So I just use that. So it bringing the fish very effective. There's a lot of different fishing technique and you develop when you fish with Tenkara. So each person will develop their own technique. But I have a story to tell you. It's very interesting. I got one of my customer who bought a Tenkara rod, and I said, "Where are you going?" He said, "Well, I go into fish in Oregon." He told me all about his trip to Western state from California to Montana and Idaho and come back. And I said, "Oh, you want to get? Of course, you want to get bringing some spare parts in case Tenkara rod fishing." He said, "Oh, I'll use a Tenkara rod for a small stream." Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I said, I look at him. I said, "Well, so what fly rod you bring with you?" He said, "No, I bring a check nymphing rod with me to fish on a big river." So I kind of, well, what's the difference between a check nymphing rod and a Tenkara rod? And he said, well, check nymphing rod is more handle big rivers better than Tenkara rod because Tenkara rod designed for mountain stream. Because he's kind of interesting. So that's a lot of fishermen believe in the reel. The fish can run, so they need a reel to have the fish run.
Yep.
So that was the most psychological problem. It's a mental blocks right there. And I told him that, hey, I fish on the big river. In California, near here we got the Yuba River. The fish can run pretty hard. If you are lucky, you hook one of these salmon in October or August or late August or October, then you could be quite running. And I looked at him and said, "How long is your rod?" He said, 10-foot length. I said, "Well, the Tenkara rod you bought in here is more than 10 foot, but you can get more room to reach into the water." But he doesn't believe it. So that's the way it is. So, and I think now he heard the story that I go back from the Pitt River, he probably will think twice.
Yeah.
But next summer he will maybe just bring Tenkara rod because he travel a lot to the airplane. He will think it twice.
No.
So
cool.
So you just have to learn how to land the fish. And I know a lot of people who hate Tenkara rod because they just get broke up and they don't know how to land the fish, because most people who get a big fish with a Tenkara rod, they have the Tenkara rod angle too low. When you lower the angle with a fly rod, you can release your reel and the fish can run. With Tenkara rod, you don't want to lower the angle, at least 45-degree angle or 60-degree angle up in the air. Mm-hmm. So make the rod work for you, bringing the fish in.
Gotcha.
For you.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So that answers a couple questions. So you can fish big rivers, and I mean, I guess that makes sense because a lot of times in some big rivers, you're only fishing 20 or 30 feet out off the bank anyways. You can catch a lot of fishing close. So yeah, it's interesting. You're starting to convince me. I was kind of thinking, that was one of the things for me is since I've never tried it, I'm kind of thinking to myself, okay, how can I be convinced to try it? And I think what you're talking about is just, it's like anything. You want to try a different rod, a different technique, try something new. It still sounds like there would be a challenge because I think a lot of people, there's so many different rods and reels and just in the typical fly fishing that you could use. It's still the question, like, why try Tenkara? And so again, it probably just comes back to that. Not necessarily, well, it sounds like to you that you can catch more fish with Tenkara, but do you think that's the biggest reason people check it out, or do you think it's more that they just want to try something new?
Well, it depends on people. I cannot speak for another people, but for me, when I get into Tenkara rod, it's my first 2 years of Tenkara rod. I catch more fish than my last 17 years of fly fishing combined.
Yeah.
And I catch more fish on side between 14 to 18 inch with my Tenkara rod and my fly rod. Actually, it can go up to 22 inches because when I fly rod, the way I fish, I don't fish big river much. When I fly rod, I also fish small streams a lot. But with a Tenkara rod, I begin to focus more on fishing versus onto the flies And also I have less worry about the casting techniques because the limitation is right there. So I'm more focused on reading the water more. Approach to the river is a lot different than when I work with fly rod. Fly rod, I just walk straight to the bank and cast it out. And sometimes you go to middle river and you cast on both sides. But with Tenkara rod, when I come in, before I reach into the river bank, I clear out the water. And most of the time I catch the fish right when I was about to step into that water. And I just catch the line out there, and the fish always waiting for me to come in and step onto them, and they can run away. But somehow now with the Tenkara rod, those areas that I check out all the water before step in, and it's a lot different way. You spend more time on fishing than thinking about gears. When I do fly fishing, I have to learn about what indicator I use. What fly do I use? It's a lot of information that I have to prepare for that. But with Tenkara rod, I just focus on one thing.
Gotcha.
Fishing, I don't have any indicator anymore. I learned how to control my depth of my fly. So I do jack nymphing, but I want to know how far I want it to go. Because the river is not a flat bed. So the river change. So you be with the indicator, you have the same distance from the surface down, how far the fly going down. So if the river getting shallower or deeper, and you lose the opportunity of catching fish on a different depth of the water. With a Tenkara rod, I can cast and I can control the depth very easily. So normally I want the fly flow a little bit on the top water, is slowly introduced down to be deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
With a fly rod, I only have one depth level. If I put a name on, I have an indicator and I suspend on that, and so how far it go down, and I know how far it go down. And if it run to the boulder, and it gets snapped.
Yeah.
But with the Tenkara rod, I can see the boulder, and I can longer rod. I can move around a little bit to control it more. I can lift the rod up a little bit to be sure that it go above that and getting down.
That's
and
awesome.
I control the flow of the nymph. So I don't have to depend on the nymph.
Yep.
So that's one thing that I do a lot, and it's very effective for me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're convincing me. You're convincing me. I'm just thinking of myself out there. And that is a big challenge, is your depth of fly and getting down to the fish. Do you have a couple of maybe books or other online resources or anything, if somebody wanted to get started with Tenkara and to learn more about it, that you would a place you would direct them?
On YouTube, and you can go into my website. I call Tenkara 101. Basically the Tenkara get only a few knots that they have to learn. This slip loop knot, and that's all you have to learn. And loop knot. A knot on Tenkara rod are quite simple. It's not so complicated like the fly fishing rod, because we worry so much about knot.
Yeah.
Tenkara rod we don't focus on the knot so much. Because you control the fly, so not the knot. So fly fishing, when you cast, you want to be everything is perfect.
Yep.
So with Tenkara rods, is very sloppy on that. So people don't care much about knot. You can get away with one knot, so you don't have to do so many different knots. So the systems are very simple, very compact, very simple, and there's not much you can learn about it. You just have to take your rod out and fish. Yep. And you learn on the river more than you learn on the book or something. But I'm working on a series of video right now, because I start teaching people down to the river now and to go out fishing, and I have learned so much what people need to know. So I'm working on that. This winter we'll be working on it, and we have a whole bunch of series onto that, how to catch the fish in a different way of catching the fish.
Okay.
Than fly rod,
and that'll be on.
That'll be because now the Tenkara rod is not a two-way for Tenkara rod to fish. Tenkara rods are very sensitive, so you can feel the fish take on your fly down the bottom.
Gotcha. Another great feature to have for sure. So those videos, those will be on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, on YouTube you go on to called Tanuki Fishing.
Tanuki Fishing. Okay, perfect. So I'll,
and also Tenkara Tanuki 101. So they get also the video that I collect all over the YouTube, and I just link to my channel. So it's not just with my videos, and there's a lot of people video onto it. So called Tanuki 101 or Tanuki Fishing.
yep. Okay. I'll link out to those, like I said before, at wetflyswing.com/39. I'll get a link to those. And do you have a few, maybe 3 tips, your biggest tips for Tenkara fishing to help somebody if they did go out there and pick up a rod and, to catch some fish?
For beginner, you can get everything you want. If you fly fisherman, it's very simple. The first thing that the first tip is don't try to get too long of the rod. The rod cover the water, but like I said, the torsion to your rig is really hard. So to be sure that to get the rod a little bit short, 12 feet is good enough, and get comfortable with that. Then you go upscale, then you can get a longer rod. But just start with no more than 12 feet long. Okay. And there's a lot of rod out there, including my rod too. Of course, I would recommend people to use my rods. All right.
Yeah.
But my rod is different. The only rod that designed in America. My background is engineer, so it's designed by the engineers in America. So it's different. I designed the rod because it just the ergonomic problems, and also. But anyway, when I get a rod, I just get a custom rod review, first generation of Tenkara rod. He said, "Oh, your rod is for beginner." I look at him and said, "What do you mean beginner?" He said, "It's too easy to cast with." I said, so that's what he said. So, beginner, the original rod, the first generation of the rod is because it's based on the Chinese for carp rod, the fishing for carp, so a little bit stiff. But that's very popular right now. And but mine is a little bit lighter, more sensitive. But that's my personal opinions about it. I'm biased, of course. All right.
Sure.
So that's all you have to need. So that first tip is don't pick the rod too long. Don't be too greedy. Just to get your hand on it and go to the event to see anybody that fishing on the event on trade show. Also see some people with Tenkara rod and try them all out. Because that's the only thing that you can have it.
Are there events around the country, or a place that somebody can find out where events are?
There are quite event around the country, but now it's the end of the season, so they know. But there are one in the Midwest called Tenkara Fest, a Midwest Tenkara Fest, held by a company called The Badger. The company making also Tenkara rod. The Badger, it holds on they call it the triplets area. It's amazing fishing there. Just fly fishermen, you can come there. You love it. It's the maze of the Raccoon Valley. It's with the network of Spring Creek look like maze. It's just incredible. One spring after another Spring Creek.
Oh wow!
And it's a great place to be. Yeah, Midwest. It's about first or second week of May every year. People from the South go to about. Not this year, but next year, about late September or early October, go to North Carolina, and they call it the Tenkara Jam, Jam, that hold about like hundreds of Tenkara fishermen around the country gather over there to just do fishing and learning on the Tenkara itself. So that is the Midwest, and now on to the West Coast, you have. In Utah, it's right on. They have a Japanese Tenkara master come over and teach every September here. His name Oni Masami. He's the top notch from Japan. Host by the called Tenkara guys in Utah. It's right on to the Sundance Resource. So it's a little bit expensive. It's about $400 or $500 per ticket for a few days. But from another place, only $30. So that, and then I begin to have my first Tenkara Bootcamp in California in this October, second week of October, and hosting about 80 people. Also invite a lot of people from around the country come over to teach. Everybody teach each other. will be a seminar and right on the resource. It's $35 per ticket, so it's quite decent. But mostly it's just go there for fishing. The town of Bishop in California is a great place to be fishing. Probably one of the best fishing place in Eastern Sierra in California.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's plenty of events around. It sounds like if people want to check it out. If as far as
so that's our Tenkara events, and also you can check out like some fly fishing trade show. There are a lot of rods out there, and you run to Tenkara company. Of course, we all want to sell you the rod more than teach you, but
yeah,
it's a good opportunity to check out and pick up some information there. But also, if you're in the West Coast, sometime I go into a fly tying event like in Oregon, the Northwest Council from the Fly Fishing International. They all the show in here, and I'm showing up there and to check it out. And I do offer the class. Like in Boise, this mid-August, I host 2 Tenkara class. Just for everybody in fly fishing, just want the curiosity or people want to try out.
Sure. That's awesome. No, that's you provided a bunch of great resources there, and hopefully I'm hoping to get out and maybe see you in Boise as well. That'd be great to.
I hope hopefully we can fish together too.
Yeah, no, you're getting me fired up because I didn't know what to expect going into this. I really didn't do a lot of research on Tenkara, but it sounds like my take on it is that. I mean, the bottom line is that you have more fly control. You're not worried about a lot of extra things that you would be typically with just typical fly fishing. So you're able to get down to the fish and pretty much catch more fish once you learn it. So I could see why you could do pretty well. And, I fish the Deschutes a lot, and that's another river where, I'm sure this technique would be great on the Deschutes.
Yes. Anytime my philosophy is every time you catch the fly in front of the fish face, you get 30% chance of catching the fish.
Yeah.
The first chance is a curiosity. The fish will take your fly for the curiosity, but normally those are small fish. The second chance is the territorial protection. That's a bigger fish. They don't want you to mess with their food chain.
Yeah.
They're attacking your fly. And the third one, I'd say, hey, that look eatable, and they're going to eat it. And another 10% with just like, they get tangled with us or whatever.
Yep.
But to me, you get 30% right there.
Okay. And on the flies, so you mentioned a few flies other than the traditional Tenkara type flies. What are your top 2 or 3 just traditional flies that you might use for when you're fishing Tenkara?
In the winter, I used to go down to Mitch. But normally, right now, I just use one fly with a soft hackle. Wings up. I don't have to use. Sometimes I want to have fun. I use a little bit for that trip. I use a stiffer hackle, rooster hackle, and it's just tight, just straight up. It look like a big ganat, and that's all. I don't use the caddis much anymore. I have about a few hundred caddis fly hanging around in here, and I always keep to my friend whenever I go to the river. I don't do that anymore. I can fish a soft hackle. What I do with soft hackle, I wet the soft hackle first. And I cast it out and I raise the rod up, and now the soft hackle flow on the surface, become a tri-fly. And then I just tap in my rod because the rod is so long, the tip is so flexible. So by jiggling the tip a little bit, and it creates a motion on the soft hackle, it looked like a distressed bug just touched down to the water, struggle, try to get out.
Yep.
And there's some video I have that on a Tenkara 101 or Tenkara Tanuki 101. So it make it look like distressed bugs, and they just come in and they take it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you mentioned the Tenkara Tanuki, your rod company. What is the Tanuki is a character in a Japanese character. Can you describe what that character is all about?
This is a fun character. It can have a devil side or it can have the good side. It become more popular now with a younger audience. Tanuki basically is a raccoon dog. It's smart like a dog, but it look like a raccoon.
Yeah.
But legends and myth in Japan in Japan, and they get funny. They get 2 big nuts, all right. And Japanese having fun with Tanuki because Tanuki had a big nut, so they can use the nuts for everything. But they also magic can transform into. They like to tease people, but they don't like to hurt people. They like to tease people. So this, they can transform into all different. In Japan, people will go nuts with a Tanuki. I will send you the link about Tanuki called the website called tofugo.com. They call Tanuki. They explain really interesting about Tanuki.
Perfect.
Character throughout the history of character is about like 5 minutes video. It's an awesome video, but it's a magical animal. They get a power.
That's a good.
It is. Yeah.
And it sounds
so it's
good.
A good character. So in Japan, Tanuki for everything. So you get a Tanuki restaurant named Tanuki Restaurant. In Seattle, you have the Tanuki Room. One of the restaurant, Japanese restaurant, they have a Tanuki room.
Gotcha. No, it sounds great. It's got that alliteration, or kind of just the word play and stuff is great.
Also, we like to trick people, all right? So the reason I picked the character, the first of Tenkara from Japan, got to be taught of Japanese onto it, but also for the fishermen, we do it tricky to fish, all right, to take out flies, all right?
Yeah.
So Tanuki, basically in Japan, for the fish, probably think that Tanuki transform into the human and trick them. Become a fisherman, basically like that. So it's a lot of things that you can look at it. Yeah.
Sure. That makes sense. Do you have thinking back on your life? I mean, we started off this talking about the war and, kind of all that madness that you grew up in. Do you, throughout your life, after that point, or is there a story or something that rings a bell that helped to kind of put you in the position now where you have a fly rod company, and anything that kind of had impact on your life?
Well, the fishing, I like the bamboo rod, so I like the actions of the rod are similar to the bamboo rod. So that's my own style, but it doesn't mean all the fishermen like that. So, they think that why do I do the rod? I always love to build rods, and fly fishing is my passions about it. And I have been working on the software engineers and the designer field. Since the late 80s to up to 2015, all right? It's a lot of stress. So when I get into here and I feel like finally I get something for my own that I love to do, and that's why I get into the rods. And I cannot concentrate working on the software engineer side of it because I stay until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to work on my rod. It's hard to go to engineer. It's unfair for the engineer company that we pay you the big bucks and here you are sitting around and halfway asleep and halfway open. It's not fair for the company. So I feel it's more fun. And initially I designed the rod for myself. It wasn't for anyone. And it was a Tenkara guy in Utah, a guy named Eric. He said, Luong, can you make some of these things for committee to use? Because he thought it was the rod. And he showed me he have 20 different rods onto there. And so that when I start building that and making for people, I have more responsible when I make the rod for another to use, which I pay more attention to details and everything rather than just my rod. So it takes a lot of time and effort for my daily work. So I just focus to work on the rods, and it's a lot of experiment. I have a quite number of video that I developed the rod and process and how I develop the rods. And I hope that someday we'll put together and share to everyone.
Yeah.
I don't hide anything. You see, how I develop the rods. And I hope that one day that we all design Tenkara rod in here and to make it fit for everybody. And, different company get their own style and brand, but at least we can design here and raising the quality of the rods more than just whatever the Chinese manufacturer give it to us and put a new label on it.
Right.
Yeah, that's what Tenkara rods are.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Well, there's definitely a bunch of other questions I can ask you. I think I'm going to have to maybe meet you in Boise and try it out first. Then maybe I could have you on again to talk about, how to take it that next step further and go from there. So, as far as, you and your rod company and things like that in the next 6 months or so, do you have anything we can kind of keep an eye out for?
Oh yeah, I have a new rod coming out. I have a new rod coming out around the corner right now. We call it the golden trout rod. It designed for people who like to fish for the small fish and love the bushy area. And the rod is very short. It's about 6 to 7 feet.
Oh wow!
Very very short. Yeah, it had been developed for more than 2 years. Testing a lot. Every trade show, 100 people test on that. Couple trip to Golden Trout Wilderness, and that one you might give it out. Yeah, and I supposed to fly there. Every rod I go, I fly to the manufacturer and work with them. But this rod, my schedule is so busy, so I just we have the working or the procedure or standard procedure setting out, so I can work from home right now and still control the quality from the manufacturer side of it. So it should be here in the next couple of weeks. That'll be the one that's coming up.
Okay, and you said they were manufactured in the U.S.?
No, manufactured in China. U.S. We cannot do Tenkara rod.
Oh, you can't. Gotcha.
We don't have it. I can sit down and talk with you for about at least an hour long how this rod made. It's very interesting, but that will be another time. It's quite long.
Okay, yeah, we'll leave it for the next one. And all right, well, before I let you get out of here, is there anything, did I miss anything today you want to tell anybody about Tenkara or what it takes to get started or catch fish?
Started just go out and catch fish. And the Tenkara rod is you not spend time to learn on casting. You just go out and cast whatever you feel you can cast with that. And the most important is to get your hand on it, and then you can develop from there. But the first thing to go out and catch fish, and there will be some. Don't get frustrated, because when I start, I used to with a very long line, and I can get shorter and shorter, and my line getting shorter. The shorter I get, the more fish I catch. But it takes some time to get a shorter line, especially from fly fishermen. And to me, that's the most important thing. Is just go and do it.
Yeah, that's a good way to kind of leave it off. And as far as people, I mean, do you find people getting started that are completely new to fly fishing altogether, or do you find more people that are kind of have been doing it a long time and then getting into Tenkara?
Well, from Bay Area, when I talk to all the fly fishing clubs, and everybody here already have Tenkara rod, but they never pull out their closet to use it because they don't know how to use it.
I see.
It's kind of strange to me, like a vacuum cleaner salesman knocking the door to tell them how to use it. A vacuum cleaner. They said, "Oh, we already have the vacuum cleaner closet, but we don't know how to use it." So right now, I just going out and fish with them, and they see me fishing, and they start believe that they can catch fish with Tenkara rod. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the fear, because if you're fishing with a lot of fly fishermen surround you, and everybody looking at you, say, "What are you doing with a Tenkara rod? Do you know how to cast?" And that kind of fear, people feel uncomfortable with that. But just take over the fear, go out and use it.
Okay.
And I know everybody have their Tenkara rod in the closet. Now, for new people come on in, you don't have to say anything. You just hold the rod, they go out, and they get a fish right away.
Yep. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, it was one of the Oakland Casting Club member named Wally. I took him down to the river, and I told him to use Tenkara rod. I said, "Hey, here's my rod. You go out and use it." And why I try to encourage him to test it out. And while I'm trying to tie another fly onto my my rod, he already caught the fish right in his hand. And he said, "I never on a hard quick is one of the most difficult quick that you can catch in California. Well-educated fish." He caught the right first fish, and he faced mine. I was just like shocked. I said, "Could you give me some change that I can tie my fly first before you catch your fish?"
Nice. Yeah,
and then suddenly we get a few more people from Long Beach Casting Club come over and ask, "Hey, you guys catch fish already? We here all day. We catch one fish too."
Yeah, yeah. No,
and so,
and
then they pull out their pocket. They do have Tenkara rod with them too, but they don't use.
Yeah,
that was so funny.
That's great. No, I think the bottom line, I've interviewed a lot of people now on this show, and for me, I think the take home is, regardless of what type of fishing you're doing, the bottom line is, are you having fun? I mean, that's it. If somebody wants to go out there.
That's what we do fishing for, right? We fish for. So why bother to worry about something else?
Yeah.
Why bother to worry about who we are? Just go out and catch fish.
Just go out and catch fish and try something new. So, all right. Well, I think we're about there. I'll let you get back to it. As far as if people want to find you, where would you direct them? Where would be the best place to get in touch with you?
Yes, they can post the message on my Facebook, Tenkara Tanuki Rods, or they can just go to my website and just email me. I'm happy to answer them all. And okay. And just post on my page on Facebook. That's the best place that I check my Facebook quite often. So.
Okay, perfect. I'll leave a link to your website and Facebook there in the show notes. And Luong, I just wanted to thank you for coming on and providing all this information. I definitely you've changed my mind on this for sure. And I think especially knowing that it doesn't cost a lot to get into it, it seems like why not try out a new type of fishing. And so I appreciate all your knowledge, and hopefully I'll meet up with you later or this summer, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. And you save a lot of money from the fly for just getting a Tenkara rod.
That's right. That's right. Well, that's actually one of my questions. We could do another half an hour on flies, because I do have some questions there. And but yeah, talking about just fishing 2 flies is definitely sounds intriguing. So, okay, well, we'll catch up with you soon, and we'll talk to you later this summer.
All right. Thanks so much. Talk to you later.
Okay. See ya. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So there you go. If you want to find all the show notes with all the links we covered, just go to wetflyswing.com/show. And if you haven't joined the Wet Fly Swing email list, head over to wetflyswing.com/email to sign up. Each week I'll send out a reminder with a quick summary of what we have going in the show this week. And also I'll have a link here to a new live video series I'm doing, where we'll be continuing some of the story here and guests and getting into more fly tying. So you can check that out as well. Thanks again for stopping by to check out the show today. I'm looking forward to catching up with you soon, and hope to see you online or on the river later.
Thanks for listening to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show. For notes and links from this episode, visit wetflyswing.com. And if you found this episode helpful, please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes.